My name is Dharmesh Sheth, and I'm a reporter and a presenter on Sky Sports News and on Sky News as well. I joined Sky Sports way back in 1998, just before Sky Sports News went on air, and I joined as a sub-editor, and I did that for 3 years before being given the opportunity to become a reporter in 2001, and I've been a reporter for Sky Sports News ever since. And in the past few years, I've also branched out into doing a bit of presenting as well, both on Sky Sports News and reading the sports bulletins on Sky News. I have to say, I've loved every minute of my job in all the years that I've been at Sky Sports, because variety is everything and every single day is different. And I guess that is the beauty of sports journalism. No 2 days are ever the same. Now, if someone was to ask me what kind of skills and qualities you'd need to become a reporter, I guess passion for sport would be high on that list, if not top of the list. Shouldn't be confused, though, with simply having fanatical support of a football team or anything like that. I think it needs a bit more than that. I think you need to have a keenness across all sports, because you never know what you'll be covering. As well as that, I think there has to be an element of getting the story behind the story and the urge to want to do that, not taking things on face value. For example, governing bodies like FIFA, the FA, the IOC will release press statements all the time. I guess the devil is in the detail with those. What have they said, but also what haven't they said? That can give you a lot of context into what you're reporting on a particular story. With regard to broadcast journalism and how it's changed since I've been doing it, well, it's changed an absolute enormous amount. I mean, I'm classed as a broadcast journalist, but I see myself as much more than that, because so much has changed within the industry. We've got social media, you've got podcasts, you've got websites. So not only am I presenting and reporting in front of the camera, I'm also doing podcasts as well, which are usually not with a camera, and I'm writing pieces for the website too. So a lot of skills that I didn't think I would have needed when I joined Sky Sports, I've had to develop and improve. So to say that you can't learn new things is a fallacy, because I'm finding I'm learning new things every day, despite the best part of 2 and a bit decades at the company. So in that way, I continue to love the job, because every day, as I say, remains different. And also the number of different things that I have to do within the job is always and is ever changing. Now, with regard to a few of the skills and things you might need when you are a reporter, I guess number one, what I have learned is 2 words: contacts book. Now, when I first became a reporter, my boss at the time said, "What's your contacts book like?" And I looked at him quizzically and said, "What's a contacts book?" And he said, "Listen, every shoot, every job that you go on, make sure that you get a number. You never know when you'll need it." And they were the wisest words I ever heard, because I do remember one occasion very early on in my reporting career where I went to interview Jermaine Easter, former Wales international. He was with Plymouth at the time, I think, and they were in League One. And he had an agent with him. And I was thinking, why, as a League One player, got an agent with him? But I exchanged numbers with the agent as per what my boss had told me. And little did I know that I would need that agent in future. And he helped to do the deals that took Kolo Touré from Arsenal to Manchester City, that took Antonio Rudiger recently to Chelsea as well. So you just never know when you need these numbers. So one big bit of advice that I would pass on is every shoot and every job that you go to, just be sure to have that phone at the ready, just to take a phone number down. One of the other aspects of the job is, of course, live reporting. And the way I do my live reporting has changed a great deal since I did my first live way back in September 2001. I picked up a lot of skills, up to even how I stand when I do a live. So I'm standing in front of the camera and my feet aren't pointing straight ahead. One is pointing straight ahead, one is pointing to the side, as if I was talking to a friend. It just helped me relax. The other things that I do when I do lives is just think of 3 bullet points. And with each bullet point, just try and do about 15 seconds per bullet point. So you don't get bogged down in anything that you're trying to say. And your viewer wants to know what's happening within a very short space of time. So if I've got these three things in my head constantly, I know that 15 seconds per point, I can't go too far wrong. So those are the two big things, the way I stand and those bullet points with regard to live reporting, but also the preparation for a live as well. You've got to have a good relationship with your producer and your camera operator as well to get exactly what you'd want to do when you do that live. The next aspect, I guess, that's a big part of our job would be interviews and news conferences as well. Now, they've developed as well, and the skills that I use have developed too. I mean, way back in the day, I would write down all my questions, and that's one thing that hasn't changed. But more now, I use it as a guide because you actually really, really have to listen to what your interviewee is saying. Because if you just had a list of questions and then you just ran one after the other, there's a chance they would have come up with a real nugget that you won't follow up on. And that's a big mistake. So I always try and listen while keeping an eye on what my next question would be, because sometimes you don't know when the interviewee will stop talking rather, and you need to be prepared to ask that next question. Interview techniques, I'm sure you've heard about leading questions and closed questions. Don't try and ask too many questions that would elicit a yes or no answer. That's not to say that that's wrong, because sometimes that could be the biggest line that you could get. You know, are you going to resign in your job? Yes or no answer sometimes suffices, and it's there and it's quite dramatic. So sometimes those yes and no answers as well can help me when I'm thinking about what my next question would be, so I can just keep the interview flowing. So those are the kind of things that I think about when I'm doing interviews and news conferences. With news conferences as well, it's very important to have a good relationship with the head of communications at the football club or whoever's conducting that interview, be it an agent or head of communications. And sometimes, even though you don't want to give too many of your questions away, sometimes it's not a bad idea to let them know, look, I will be asking the manager about this particular topic, because if you ask them without prior knowledge, sometimes you won't get the greatest answer. And even though they will have an advance warning of what question is coming, sometimes that can work in your benefit because you can get a better answer. Finally, I would say breaking stories is a massive part of the job as well. I can use the example of transfers when we've tried to break transfer stories. Now, sometimes we are slower than other media outlets, but more often than not, Sky Sports News is correct. So I think the first and foremost, the idea is to be correct first and then fast second. If you can get both at once, then even better. But when you're trying to break a story, especially at Sky Sports News, we have protocols in place whereby I can't just put out a story if I've got it from an agent of a player. I need to speak to both clubs. They're not necessarily going to give me confirmation that that is true, but given the language that they'll use, I'll know whether we can run the story in the form of, we understand this to be true. So if I was to go to a club and say, look, I've heard that you're signing Lionel Messi, and they would give me one of three answers, that either say yes, which is very unlikely, that either say that's complete nonsense, in which case we would more likely than not run the story. And if it then proved to be true, we can then go back to them and say, look, we're coming to you in good faith. We're giving you the heads up before we run this story, and you've lied to us. That doesn't happen very often. Normally, they'll say, look, we don't want to comment on that story, which normally gives us the license, if we have full trust in our sources, to go with that story. So that's just a short synopsis of various things that I do. But if you do want to get into the industry, let me tell you, it's a fantastic industry to be in, and sports reporting and presenting is the best.